I was hired for 10 million a month. My job used my infamous mouth to protect my weak, crippled husband. I thought I was the war goddess, shielding a harmless rabbit from his cruel family. But the man in the wheelchair was a ruthless wolf, and I was just a pawn in his game. Please listen to the story. After the video of me cursing for 2 hours straight without repeating a single word went viral, a wealthy lady sought me out. 10 million RMB a month to marry my son. I was just about to curse her out, thinking she was a scammer, when I heard her wipe away her tears and say haltingly, "He has a gentle temperament, and ever since his accident, people constantly bully him. Your mouth is perfectly suited to protect him." Later, at a party, I saw the elegant man in the wheelchair. He was being ridiculed and mocked, but he just lowered his head in silence. A sudden wave of sympathy washed over me. Feeling that sympathy, I nodded in agreement. That is until one day I accidentally stumbled upon my wake husband, Julian Cheng, sitting confidently in the highest position, his aura overwhelming. He stared coldly down at a group of people he had driven to bankruptcy who were now kneeling on the ground, begging him for mercy. "Hold on, my dearest mother-in-law. Are you sure your son is weak and unable to care for himself? Julian, I heard you just got married. We've known each other for so many years. And I don't really have a special gift to give you." The man speaking, Mr. Joe, sneered maliciously, his gaze sweeping over me with blatant disrespect. "If you can't perform, your brother here can take care of the wedding night for you." I laughed too, my voice casual. "Why? Are you planning to hide under the bed and eavesdrop? There's a dog kennel in the corner. It's just your size." I scanned him from head to toe with utter disdain. "It's just a pity that we have no interest in raising trash like you. People say a good guard dog doesn't bark. You're barking so loudly, you must be all show. You aren't even qualified to be a dog." The man's face flushed crimson with anger. "You. How dare you?" I cut him off immediately. "Attention everyone. The restrooms are temporarily out of service." I didn't speak loudly, but it was enough to make several people nearby turn their heads. I looked back at him and sneered. "It's because this gentleman's mouth already functions as a toilet. How else could it smell so foul?" The man was so angry he stomped his foot. "You're so vulgar." I shrugged. "You call that vulgar? I was actually going easy on you to save you some face. Do you want to hear what really sounds nasty?" After I finished dressing him down and he stormed away, Julian, still in his wheelchair, quietly said, "Thank you." Looking at his weak and vulnerable demeanor, so easily bullied, I suddenly felt protective. I softened my voice and assured him, "Don't worry. From now on I'm the one who will protect you." Julian smiled, his voice gentle. "Then I'll be relying on you, wife." That one word, wife, made me blush crimson. The story of how I ended up marrying Julian Cheng is actually quite ridiculous. That summer was supposed to be completely normal. I had returned to my hometown for the summer break and needed to wash a pile of clothes. I had just arrived home and hadn't seen the village chief's text message. As a result, just as the washing machine was about to hit the spin cycle, the power cut out. I had no choice but to painstakingly haul the entire, heavy load of soapy clothes out of the machine. I carried the large basin out to the courtyard to rinse the suds out with water. Right at that moment, I heard an unfamiliar voice. "The kids in this village will never step foot outside this place in their entire lives. It's even worse for girls. They're completely illiterate. Their only path is to marry early, have children, and serve their husband's entire extended family. Just look at the girl right in front of us. So young and frail. Yet she's forced to wash clothes for her whole family of in-laws. We are here to show them a world they have never seen, to bring them warmth. That is the true meaning of our livestream." What was that about never leaving the village? And illiterate? What nonsense about washing clothes for my entire husband's family? My mind was filled with question marks, and I instinctively pictured a meme sticker of myself with a "who, me" expression. The speaker was holding up a phone, filming a live stream. Beside him, an assistant held a backpack and a portable light panel, chiming in with agreement every few seconds. This is a classic case of taking one picture and making up the entire story. I listened as his fabrications, by this streamer Wang Tao, became more and more outrageous, milking the situation for livestream gifts. I finally couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed the heavy wooden stick I used for laundry. I charged out. "Get the hell out of here." A single shout echoed out, stunning both the streamer and his entire live audience into silence. What followed was my impromptu performance. A 2-hour-long tirade cursing him out without a single repeated insult. 2 solid hours of a continuous, creative stream of insults, no repeated phrases, no reused swear words. At the end, I grabbed both the streamer and his assistant by their collars and shoved my high school diploma and my bachelor's degree right in their faces. I wasn't even finished. But unfortunately, the livestream was shut down due to excessive profanity. A livestream like that, built on slandering others just to get views, deserved to be banned. After calming down from my outburst, I went back inside. I never expected that I would become famous. Someone clipped that segment, calling me the #1 cursing saint of the university world. There was even a bunch of people in the comments trying to hire me for professional cursing services. I didn't pay much attention to it until a few days later, I suddenly received a phone call. The person on the other end was brief. 10 million RMB. Marry my son. It sounded exactly like a malicious prank call. That is until I was standing in front of their 3-story villa. Wait, you people, you are serious? A well-dressed, elegant woman told me that her youngest son Julian had been in a car accident not long ago. Although his life was saved, he was now bound to a wheelchair. Since then, countless people had mocked and ridiculed him, both openly and behind his back. She needed someone like me. Someone who could curse them all out until they never dared again. I was educated, but I also knew how to curse. It was like I was a heaven-sent war goddess. No, a heaven-sent daughter-in-law. It sounded absurd, but within the absurdity, there was a strange kind of logic. I hesitated. Marriage was a huge commitment, after all. The woman, Mrs. Cheng, immediately said, 10 million. I wavered. Or maybe, I could meet your son first. She continued, 10 million a month. Yes, mother. For 10 million a month, I would have married him even if he were a toad. But of course, Julian Cheng was no toad. He was even more handsome than the social media heartthrobs I usually scrolled past. More importantly, at that moment, Julian sat there in his wheelchair, clearly so gentle and warm, yet he was still being openly mocked. He was being ridiculed by the people around him. At first, I didn't understand. In a family this wealthy, shouldn't they at least try to maintain some basic decency? Why would they bully him so blatantly? It wasn't until I saw the man standing in the center of the crowd, being flattered and fawned over like a star, Julian's older brother, Marcus Cheng, that it all clicked. The waters of a wealthy family truly run deep. Julian's face was already pale. Yet he forced himself to endure it. Growing up, I, Miranda's son, had never been afraid of a fight, and I'd never been afraid of an argument. The only thing I couldn't handle was seeing this kind of silent, pitiful suffering. Whenever I saw it, my heart just melted and all my defenses disappeared. In that moment, the blood rushed to my head and I thought, this man, I will protect him. Julian is an incredibly gentle person. Even after the sudden accident, he never complained or blamed anyone, nor did he take his anger out on others. In contrast, I had only been in the villa for one day before I scolded 3 of the gossiping maids until they burst into tears. They saw that Julian had injured his legs and had no hope of inheriting the family assets, so they immediately switched allegiance to fawn over Marcus Cheng, and even leaked all of Julian's private information like a sieve. I coldly dismissed them one by one. Julian sat to the side, and after I had finished handling everything, he even handed me a glass of warm water, saying, "You must be thirsty. Look at him, such a good person, yet he was being oppressed by those people to this extent." I stopped the butler. From now on, there's no need to purchase any jewelry for me. It would be better to buy solid gold with that money, at least it holds its value. Besides, I can buy a pair of 100% real pearl earrings for just over 100 RMB, that's a solid saving of 3,900 RMB right there. What a deal. All this inflated value junk that these capitalists try to shove down our throats, I have zero interest in it. At lunch, I stared intently at Julian as he elegantly cut a piece of steak. He seemed unnerved by my gaze and hesitantly offered his fork to me. "Do you want some?" No, you eat it. You eat it." I quickly refused, my face full of anticipation as I watched him. Julian looked slightly bewildered, but he obediently put the meat into his mouth. "Is it good?" He nodded. I beamed, my voice taking on a coaxing tone. "So, do you think it tastes any different from yesterday's beef?" Julian Cheng paused, his fork hovering in mid-air. He looked at the steak on his plate, then back at me, his eyes filled with baffled confusion. "See, this imported Australian beef, flown in directly by air, tastes exactly the same as the fresh beef from the yellow cattle my family just butchered, delivered, and cooked. There is no fundamental difference. I've managed to save another solid chunk of change. Those capitalists won't get another cent out of me." At the end of the month was the birthday party for Julian's older brother. In the afternoon I called the butler over. Gritting my teeth, I ordered a 500,000 RMB set of cufflinks and a matching tie pin for Julian. Just then, Julian wheeled himself in. I paused, pulling him over to my side. Didn't you say all this stuff was just inflated capitalist value? You just sold off all your own jewelry a few days ago. Why are you ordering something so expensive from me now? I showed him the design I had picked out. I don't care about that stuff for myself. But this is your brother's birthday party. A lot of your acquaintances will be there. Those people are all the type to judge a book by its cover. They look at what you're wearing before they even look at you. We can't give them any chance to laugh at you. As for me, everyone knows I come from the countryside. It's normal for me not to have designer brands. At worst, I'll just curse them out. Julian was amused by my words and closed the catalog. In that case, I don't need them either. When the time comes, you can just curse them out with me. He tilted his head, a hint of playfulness in his eyes. The birthday of Marcus Cheng, Julian's brother, was guaranteed to be a hostile event. Everyone there would be looking for a chance to step on Julian to curry favor with the host. To prepare for this battle, I even made a special trip back to my hometown to learn some new cursing techniques from the notoriously formidable aunts and grannies at the village entrance. When Julian came in, I was testing different lipstick shades on my hand. He watched me seriously for a moment, then picked out one of the tubes. Use this one. I grabbed a different shade, replacing the one in his hand. Julian gently took the lipstick and applied it softly to my lips. I looked at myself in the mirror, turning left and right, completely satisfied. A true queen red, it makes anyone look powerful. Today, I'll use this color to dominate the entire room. Julian smiled softly. He used his fingertip to gently touch my lips, then dabbed it onto his own. Oh. In that case I'll use it to dominate too. By the time we were standing at the villa entrance, my face was still burning. Julian Cheng was just too good at flirting. I had originally calmed down, but then he took my hand in the car and fastened a bracelet around my wrist. It was covered in colorful, sparkling gemstones that glittered brightly in the sunlight. What woman doesn't love sparkly things? I looked at it from every angle, loving it more and more. When did you buy this? Didn't we agree? We're a couple living the minimalist, frugal lifestyle. Julian smiled and winked. I used my black money fund to buy it. I poked him in the forehead. Very clever. We're barely married and you've already started a secret stash. Mr. Cheng. We had arrived late. By the time we entered the banquet hall, it was already quite crowded. Under the dazzling lights, everyone was dressed to the nines. Wine glasses clinked and conversations flowed, but absolutely no one made any attempt to speak to us. From intentional provocation, they moved to intentional ignorance. It seemed that after getting a taste of my medicine, they had decided to change tactics. Not that Julian or I cared. We were just focused on living our own lives well. These petty games of stepping on the weak to elevate themselves weren't worth our time. I pushed Julian's wheelchair over to the dessert table and personally selected a few items for him. After the accident, Julian's health had weakened, and he often suffered from low blood sugar, so I paid extremely close attention to his daily diet. As we were having our sweet, affectionate moment, someone was bound to find it offensive. Marcus Cheng, Julian's older brother, walked over holding a wine glass. He sized us up for a few moments, then put on a show of brotherly concern. Frowning. Why are you dressed so simply? Did your people pull a fast one and pocket your money? If you're short on cash, just tell me. I'm just afraid that someone by your side might be taking advantage of your leg. Seeing the Cheng family's wealth and getting greedy. Marcus was clearly targeting me. I rolled my eyes and was just about to open my mouth when a man next to him, Mr. Lee, cut in. Exactly, we were just saying, guarding against outsiders is one thing. But it's much harder to guard against your own family. Mr. Cheng, the Cheng family is so powerful, you must manage it well. I burst out laughing and leaned down to look at Julian. Is this your long-lost nephew? Julian didn't understand, looking up at me in confusion. The man, Mr. Lee, snapped indignantly. You country bumpkin. My surname isn't Cheng. You're not a Cheng. Then why are you so concerned with the Cheng family's business? You're sticking your hand so far into my family's affairs. I thought. You must be Julian's long-lost, legitimate grand-nephew or something. Marcus Cheng frowned, reprimanding me in a stern voice. Everyone here is a guest of the Cheng family. Don't embarrass us. Julian's eyes flickered, his expression darkening slightly. Another person chimed in with a sneer. That's right. How could the Cheng family ever let this kind of woman in the door? She's a disgrace to the family name. The second young master broke his legs, and it looks like his eyes went bad, too. I leaned in close to Julian and whispered, do you have a lot more of that black money left? Julian nodded. Good. I stood up straight and punched the man, Mr. Lee. square in the eye. Thwack, he let out a blood-curdling scream, clutching his face and staggering back. Marcus was stunned and was just about to yell in anger, "You," but I swung my other hand and clocked him too. The party instantly descended into chaos. I grabbed Julian's wheelchair and fled. I pushed that wheelchair so fast it felt like we were in a race. The two of us hid in the small flower garden behind the villa. I was so tired I sat right down on the ground. When I looked up, I met Julian's gaze. His eyes were dancing with amusement. "Mr. Cheng, you're not going to blame me for causing trouble, are you?" Julian Cheng smiled and shook his head. "So, how do you feel right now?" He mimicked my tone of voice and said, "That was awesome. It's over. The elegant Mr. Cheng has officially been corrupted by me. Oh right, and this." I pulled two small cakes out of my pocket. Unfortunately I had sat on one and crushed it. Julian was very generous. He broke off half of the intact cake and handed it to me. He sat in his wheelchair, I sat on the ground. The two of us, hiding in the small garden behind the party, shared a single piece of cake. Do you ever feel like we look just like a rich couple who's gone bankrupt? It turns out you really can't just eat whatever. And you really can't just say whatever. Half a month after Julian and I joked about looking like a bankrupt, high society couple, the Cheng family truly fell into the biggest crisis in its history. Logically speaking, a family with a foundation as solid as the Cheng family's shouldn't have been able to collapse so easily. No one expected the assets to suddenly evaporate, and for the capital chain to be completely severed. Even though I knew nothing about the business world, I could feel that something was extremely strange. That is, until Julian told me, "The Cheng family is bankrupt. I probably can't support you anymore." My heart skipped a beat. Could it be Marcus Cheng? Was he trying to get rid of his troublesome little brother by staging this whole bankruptcy drama? "I don't want to drag you down. If you want, we can go and file for divorce anytime." When Julian Cheng said these words, his expression was as calm and serene as a light breeze rippling over a lake. But sitting there all alone, he looked so incredibly weak and pitiful. How could I do that? "Don't overthink it." I reached out and hugged him, my heart aching at the thought of him being abandoned by his own family. I was so focused on that, I completely missed the dark, fleeting light that passed through Julian Cheng's eyes. I brought Julian back to my small house in my hometown. My house was small, but it was neat and had everything we needed. Julian wheeled himself around the courtyard, his eyes full of curiosity and interest. "So, not too bad, right? I designed this house myself." I pushed his wheelchair, giving him a tour of every nook and cranny, explaining. "After I had a huge fight with my family, I moved out on my own. Bit by bit I turned this place into my very own home." Julian Cheng asked me why I had fought with my family. "Son preference, what else? In my family, I was born to be a workhorse for my younger brother. I wasn't even allowed to touch a book. In the end, I just left. And if they wouldn't let me, I fought them." "You think my cursing skills are natural?" "Of course. They were forged in real combat. Those people. They're the type to bully the weak and fear the strong, all bark and no bite. Why else would they constantly try to teach girls about the 3 obediences and 4 virtues? It's because they're afraid that if we become strong, we'll turn into tigresses they can't control." Returning to my own territory, I finally felt a sense of peace. I chatted a bit more with Julian. That evening, I sat on my small bed and turned on the nightstand lamp. The dim light created a hazy, dreamlike, and poetic atmosphere. Julian Cheng was half lying on the bed, his eyes shimmering like autumn water, quietly watching me. I energetically hopped onto the bed. "Come on. Let's do something important." I grabbed the small cloth bag I kept by the bed. "Let me show you our assets." Julian's gentle water-like expression immediately cracked. 10 million a month might be nothing to you rich folks, but for people like me, it's a sum I could never earn in a lifetime. These past few months, I've cut our expenses to the absolute minimum. It was all to prepare for a day like this. Julian's expression shifted slightly. His expression changed. "Your brother sees you as a thorn in his side, anyone can see that plain as day. And your mother. Even though you're her son and she feels sorry for you, she still has to rely on your brother for her future. When it comes down to it, she will still abandon you. If not, she would have stood up for you when you were being mocked and humiliated, instead of just hiring me to be your shield. The Cheng family's assets are mostly gone. Marcus is clinging to what's left, and your mother, Mrs. Cheng, vanished. She vanished the second the family ran into trouble. Don't worry. This much money is more than enough for us to live comfortably for the rest of our lives." And so, Julian and I settled into a peaceful life. I now had money and free time, and a gentle, handsome man right in front of me. My mood was better than it had ever been. Fate was truly generous to me. Just as I was feeling happy and content, a new handsome guy moved in next door. I heard he was the neighbor's son, Xiao Zhao, who was away at university and had just come home for the summer break. He was young, full of life, polite, and charming. He came over to borrow something, and no matter how you looked at it, he was just pleasant. Hemph. I was chatting with my handsome neighbor when, suddenly, a pained groan came from inside the house. I rushed in, alarmed. "What's wrong?" Julian's face was a little pale, but he still tried to gently reassure me. "It's nothing. My leg just hurts a little. Do we have a guest? You should invite him in. The tea I dried a few days ago is perfect for serving." How could I possibly be in the mood for guests right now? Ever since we moved here, Julian had never once complained about his leg. This place, it was peaceful, but its medical resources were severely lacking. I was terrified that without regular check-ups, his leg injury was relapsing. I sat down and started rubbing and gently massaging his leg. "I'm really fine, don't worry." Even though he said that, over the next few days, his leg continued to hurt in sharp, sporadic pangs. I barely left his side, sticking to him like glue. Still, I felt uneasy, because his leg made it difficult to move. I told him to stay put in the house while I went out alone to buy medicine. When I returned, I saw Julian. He was sitting in the courtyard, chatting with the neighbor over the wall. As soon as the college student neighbor, Xiao Zhao, saw me, his expression changed instantly, as if he had seen a demon. He turned and bolted, disappearing from sight. Only Julian Cheng was left, sitting there alone, his head bowed low, lost in thought. I walked over to him. Julian looked up, his voice soft and gentle. Ran, if in the future you really meet someone who can take care of you, just let me go. I won't blame you. No matter what, I just want you to be happy." I was completely confused. So I asked him, "There's no reason for you to suddenly say that. Why are you saying these things?" Could that college student neighbor have said something to Julian? But no matter how much I pressed him, Julian Cheng wouldn't say another word. He was unusually quiet that night. I looked all over the bedroom but couldn't find him. And I started to worry, so I pushed open the bathroom door. Julian was leaning against the side of the bathtub. He glanced up at me briefly, then lowered his gaze again. I followed his line of sight down and through the hazy steam. The smooth, enticing skin of Julian Cheng was revealed. How does he maintain such a great physique without exercising every day? That thought spun wildly in my mind, and my gaze on him began to turn dazed. Julian chuckled softly and asked gently, Ran, do you want to touch it? This is so embarrassing." I scrambled over in a flash and placed my hands on him. Julian lay back comfortably in the tub, even holding his arms open for me to explore freely. Just as I was completely absorbed and my guard was down, he suddenly pulled me into the tub with surprising force. I struggled instinctively, but his arm was already wrapped tightly around my waist. "Wife, don't move. You care about my leg the most, you don't want it to hurt, do you?" People really aren't wrong when they say that caring too much about a man will, sooner or later, lead to suffering. If it wasn't because I cared about Julian Cheng, I wouldn't be lying flat on the bed right now like a dried fish. The main culprit, meanwhile, was resting leisurely on the side of the bed, playfully toying with my hand. "Wife, you're awake." His bright, sparkling eyes looked at me. "Wife, didn't you promise me yesterday that no matter what happens in the future you won't abandon me?" I was still sulking. I angrily pulled my hand back, my voice hoarse. "I did not." The light in Julian Cheng's eyes instantly poofed and went out. "I'm sorry I'm the one dragging you down. It was you who said it. I promised you." "Okay, I just can't stand seeing Julian in that pitiful, dejected state. Every time my heart just melts. Smart people don't fall in love. But I'm just a stupid fish getting hooked again and again. I really am an idiot. But lately, Julian has been very strange, very strange. He used to be so gentle. But there was always a sense of distance, as if a thin veil of silk separated us. But ever since we moved in together, he has been deliberately acting weak, making me promise over and over not to leave him. It's as if I'm the heartless woman with a scandalous past, the one who betrayed him." It went on until one day. I pretended to whine that I wasn't feeling well. He actually eased up on tormenting me, so I wasn't sleeping as deeply as usual that night. In a hazy daze, I thought. I heard the person beside me get out of bed quietly, but there was no sound of wheels rolling. No wheelchair. How could Julian get out without his wheelchair? That was the first thought that flashed through my mind. I forced my heavy eyelids open, just in time to see Julian's back disappearing through the doorway. Was he standing? I sat up immediately, my eyes wide. I'm obviously not naive enough to believe this was some spontaneous medical miracle. The only possibility is that this pitiful, helpless, that damn Julian Cheng, has been hiding something from me. I instantly jumped out of bed and followed him silently. The night air was as cold as water. Julian stood there coldly, completely indifferent to the group of people kneeling in front of him, begging for forgiveness. He even lifted his foot and stomped directly on the fingers of the middle-aged man at the front. I was so mad I almost laughed. In other words, my shabby little courtyard is actually witnessing a scene straight out of a gangster movie tonight. I was hesitating, wondering if charging out and cursing at him right now would ruin his mafia boss aura. When suddenly, as if he sensed me, he abruptly looked up. There was no time to hide. Our eyes met, his gaze softened instantly, and his expression slowly melted back into his usual, pitiful look. He's really taking this act too far. Is he actually addicted to playing the victim? The truth was just as dramatic and absurd as those high society novels I'd read. The only difference was that the scheming, ruthless, and cruel male lead was now sitting right next to me. Julian and his brother, Marcus Cheng, had been fighting covertly for years. Marcus thought one car accident would be enough to declare victory. But he had no idea that it was just the beginning of Julian's counter-plan. The Cheng family's capital chain breaking was actually Julian's doing. He used it as an opportunity to liquidate assets, separate himself completely from the Cheng family, and launch a ferocious counter-attack. As for the so-called broken legs, they had been perfectly healthy from the start. So that means, not only are you perfectly healthy now, but you also control a massive amount of assets, right? Julian sat obediently, on the sofa, timidly nodding his head. He then quickly added, "But, I really was injured in the accident. It still hurts a little when it rains." He lowered his eyes, showing that familiar, pitiful expression. "You promised me that no matter what, you would never leave me." I snorted and looked up at him. Seeing the anxiety and unease in Julian's eyes, I quickly stood up and started packing. Oh my God. Just how good is my life going to be? Not leaving, I'm not leaving, I'm going to move back into your huge mansion with you. Are you kidding me? My pitiful, crippled husband suddenly transforms into a mega tycoon who is both healthy and loaded with money. Anyone who would run away at this point is a complete idiot. So, about that 10 million a month, are you still paying me? On the way back to the mansion, I asked him cautiously. Julian's expression was complicated. "I'll double it for you." I let out a happy shriek and threw myself at him, clinging on tightly. Compared to the long days of Julian probing, hesitating and hiding things, I was more than happy to accept his change in status. I excitedly moved into the new house that Julian Cheng had arranged. Julian's comeback sent shockwaves through the community. Every day, a new group of people would show up at our door, trembling, to apologize and beg for forgiveness. Among them were plenty of the same people I had cursed out in the past. Every time this happened, Julian would glance over at me. I never looked back, I didn't even have time to pay attention. I was too busy, for the 180th time, stroking the railing of the magnificent spiral staircase. Yesterday Julian Cheng had just transferred the deed to this mansion into my name. A house this amazing is in my name, only one word for it: bliss. After Julian's personal value skyrocketed, the number of my love rivals also began to explode. To be honest, I didn't really care. He pays me 20 million a month. He could open a whole harem out there, and I wouldn't bother trying to stop him. But Julian Cheng wouldn't let me be that idle. Every time we were at a social event and someone tried to intentionally throw themselves at him, he would deftly take a step back and say coolly, "Sorry, my wife is not someone to be trifled with." And just like that, it was my cue to make a grand entrance, full of righteous fury, and verbally annihilate anyone who dared to cling to Julian. My combat skills had already been proven back when Julian was still faking it. Now, with a few new moves, my reputation as a tigress spread even further. Well, all things considered, he pays me that much money, so I'll put on the show. But today was clearly different from the other times. When Julian texted me to come over, he was already slightly drunk. The girl standing next to Julian Cheng at that moment was dressed in designer brands from head to toe. She was clearly the pampered daughter of some wealthy family. Most importantly, the way she held her head high and puffed out her chest, overflowing with confidence, made it hard for me to tell who was supposed to be the actual wife in this situation. Immediately, some gossip monger whispered in my ear, "That's Julian Cheng's former fiancée, Anna Pei." Oh, whether it's a former fiancé or a former fiancé, they're still an ex. And if you're an ex, why are you here making your presence known? Oh, an ex-girlfriend. Hello, I smiled politely. You're Miranda's son, right? She opened her mouth, her words sharp. I advise you to know your place. A country girl like you isn't worthy of Julian Cheng. You should have the decency to back out on your own. Oh my, what a familiar line. The 8 p.m. cheesy high society drama is finally casting me in the lead role. I looped my arm through Julian's and smiled. But he pays me 20 million RMB a month. Your family is rich too, right? Want to start a bidding war? See who goes higher. Her expression immediately darkened. She took a deep breath, suppressing her anger. I heard you're a university student, correct? Instead of getting a job after graduation, you're just mooching off a man. Don't you feel ashamed? Ashamed. I repeated the word dramatically, then raised an eyebrow. I'm a pink-collar professional. Pink collar? Never heard of it. It means being beautiful and enjoying life. An annual income of 3 million, just to carry bags, eat good food, and wear nice clothes. If you were me, which would you choose? Julian didn't seem very happy. After we got home I could tell he was sober, but he remained silent. He sat on the sofa, lost in thought, before suddenly blurting out, "Wife, maybe you should just curse me out." Huh. What kind of weird request is that? I feel like you don't like me. You only love my money. Heaven and earth are my witnesses. That is the most unjust accusation. I cuddle your abs every single night without fail, and you say I don't love you. Julian was speechless. No. Not that kind of love. I feel like you don't care about me that much. Look, I hid such a huge secret from you. But you didn't get angry at all. You didn't even curse me out once. That proves you don't really have deep feelings for me. What kind of twisted logic is that? I asked cautiously. So what are you saying? What should I have done? I was supposed to be sad, angry, and heartbroken. I was supposed to ignore you, watch you beg me for forgiveness, and then what? Then I would finally forgive you, and we'd reunite like a broken mirror made whole. Right. I slapped my thigh. Well, we're already at the last step, aren't we? The grand reunion. Julian Cheng was about to say something else, but I reached out and gave his cheek a hard pinch. Julian Cheng, I know what you're agonizing over, but first of all, you did nothing wrong to me. And as for me, I've always lived this way. I dare to love, and I dare to hate. I'm not melodramatic, and I don't waste my own energy. I always choose what's best for myself, and I've never hurt anyone in the process. The news about Julian Cheng's leg recovery soon spread everywhere, and everything unfolded just as he had predicted. Marcus Cheng was so smug his tail was practically showing. Countless people around him immediately showed their true colors. Julian Cheng just sneered inwardly. All the better. He would settle all the accounts at once, sparing no one. The one thing he hadn't anticipated was this wife who had fallen from the sky. At first, he assumed she was a spy planted by Marcus or his mother. But after a few days of observation, he came to a conclusion she wasn't one of Marcus's people. Well then, she must be here for the money. 10 million a month. His mother really knew how to invest. But it was all just crocodile tears. If it weren't, she wouldn't have suppressed the investigation into his accident, so dedicated to protecting her eldest son. So, he intentionally told the butler to lump the 10 million RMB into their living expenses and then pushed a pile of absurdly expensive luxury brand invoices on her. Unsurprisingly, after she found out, she panicked and secretly cut a whole swath of major expenses in the villa. Just a vain woman obsessed with petty calculations. That's what he thought. And yet, he felt a slight stirring, especially every time she stood in front of him, protecting him without hesitation. Compared to all the hypocrisy and scheming in high society circles, her directness and bluntness were, actually refreshing. When he blurted out that word, refreshing, he himself was startled. He clearly knew what kind of person she was, yet he couldn't stop himself from being drawn in, from being influenced by her. Being with her was a purely simple kind of happiness. If only he didn't have to pretend to be pitiful. In Julian Cheng's eyes, a person who always acted weak, who lived off the pity and sympathy of others, was uselessly kind. They were an idiot, yet he found himself constantly using her sympathy. Because it seemed that only by doing so could he hold her gaze a little longer, and be loved a little bit more. The kids in this village will never step foot outside this place. On the surface, it looked like she was the one who had walked into his life. But in reality, he was the one racking his brain, trying 1,000 different schemes, just to earn a little of her attention. A little bit of her affection. When the bankruptcy drama officially began, the cold-blooded beast lying in wait felt not only excitement for the hunt, but also a twinge of regret and anxiety. Would this little wife, who had come for money, abandon him and leave? If so, that would be a real pity. Not a pity that his long-running act as a pitiful husband had failed, but a pity that he could no longer continue to play house as a loving couple with her. Ah, but there was no need for pity. She loves money. So, when his grand plan was complete, he would personally go and find her. Force, coercion, a mix of hard and soft tactics, after all, she would be the one abandoning him first. When that time came, he wouldn't let her off so easily. The more Julian thought about it, the more his mind wandered, and he even felt a little flicker of anticipation. But the truth, once again, took him completely by surprise. The little wife he had mistaken as loving only money, this time, steadfastly chose to stand by his side. Even what he had assumed was her, secretly cutting expenses, turned out to be her quietly preparing for their hard times ahead. The worst thing for a suspicious and dark-souled person is to meet someone with a soul as clear as a mirror. Because she is like a mirror, reflecting all the darkness and ugliness within him. He clearly had victory in his grasp. Yet he found himself delaying the moment to close the net. He suddenly didn't dare to speak, didn't dare to let her know the whole truth. Could she accept his darkness and his schemes? So this was the feeling they called returning home with apprehension. She accepted it all cheerfully, yet he felt no relief. Did she really not care about him? Why wasn't she angry? Why didn't she curse him at all? Julian Cheng, who had always slept soundly even while plotting, experienced his first sleepless night. He intentionally used his ex-fiancée, Anna Pei, to test her, and still she remained calm, seemingly unbothered. It wasn't until he heard her speak that he truly understood. From the very beginning, Miranda Sun was a person as straightforward and pure as a mirror. She was warm, sincere, radiant, and always lived fully in the present. She treated everyone with kindness. She could empathize, she could pity, and she could let things go without dwelling. She would forever shine like the sun. And he would willingly become the one who chased that sun, to banish all the darkness within himself. The story challenges the idea that love must be a dramatic, painful, movie-like affair. When Miranda discovers her husband's massive deception, she doesn't feel betrayed or heartbroken. She skips the drama and is thrilled that he is powerful and rich. Their relationship works because it's practical. She provides genuine loyalty and protection, and he provides security. This simple, honest exchange created a bond stronger than any built on romantic illusions.